Parenting is hard. Few of us feel up to the task. The world is shifting, quickly and dramatically. All of us feel the changes affecting our families. The stress and pressure can be intense. We are here to help sort the good and the bad, provide insight, and bring hope. Welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting. We're so glad you stopped by.
Hi, I'm Pastor Brad, and I want to welcome you to Season 4 of Brilliantly Brave Parenting. I'm here with my co-host, Robert Beeson.
Hey, Brad, how are you?
I am spectacular.
You're looking fine today.
I am? You think?
Yeah.
I got a new hat.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's a Tennessee hat.
It's nice. It's good to be here, Brad. It's a little hot, though. Tennessee, this time of year, not happy about it.
Well, you know, I've lived here almost 20 years, and I'm not used to it.
I'm the same. Been here about 20 years, and every year about this time I say the same thing, you know.
Why do I live here?
Why do I live here?
Yeah,
But it's just for 3 months, and then I realize why I live here, because everything gets cool and beautiful, and
yeah.
So I can put up with the 3 or 4 months of heat.
So Tennessee summers are just pretty much the same as like living on the equator, I think.
Yeah.
It's just muggy, hot.
Or standing in a bathroom with the shower going and the heater going.
You just carry a bar of soap around.
Yep.
You don't even need a shower. You just sort of use it when it's time. It's that wet, folks, in Tennessee. And I know there are people who live in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas, and they'll tell us that we're not tough enough because it's even soupier there, but I don't believe it. I don't think you can get past like spontaneous moisture.
This is plenty moist for me.
I agree. Well, we're done complaining. Parenting's hard too, kind of like humidity. Is that a good segue?
It's reaching.
It's reaching. Well, Robert and I are reaching. Last week, if you joined us, we got to really hang out with some really fun. We got to talk with Michael W. Smith. So if you missed, you should go back on this Season 4. We had a fantastic time. I thought
it was great.
I mean, what a guy, right? Just
yeah.
You know, I'm not maybe I was a little starstruck, maybe just a little, but I was more just a little fanboy, but more just the fact that this is a real guy with a real heart for Jesus.
Absolutely.
And after 30 some years, it's still his main motivation.
Yeah.
That's so rare. You and I have seen behind the curtain, you know, we've seen the inconsistencies. That wasn't there with Michael.
No, he's always been like that. And he's just a very grounded individual, and he's as normal as you could possibly imagine. Well,
you know, I find anyone who has the courage to adjust their life to the Holy Spirit's leading worthy of inspiration. And our guest today is like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have to be music. There's all kinds of things that take us to the place where we're saying, this is not working. I need to change.
Yeah. It takes courage to change, and it takes humility to admit that this isn't working. And so I'm excited to introduce our guest today. His name is Edelheit. Welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me on.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, so Aaron, we know because we've read your briefing and your press release, and we know a little bit about you, but our audience, tell them who you are and how you came to this place in your life to write a book.
Sure. So I think the first thing that I would tell you is that I'm a workaholic. And I'm driven in ways that I'm not sure I understand why that I'm driven in the ways that I am. And I came to a place where I was working all the time, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I kind of hit a wall where, I just hit a real low point, and I realized no matter how hard I was working, I wasn't getting the quality of work or the results that I wanted. And my personal life was suffering, my social life, my spiritual life was suffering. And so I asked myself, I said, wait, this isn't working. I'm not getting the results I want. And so I kind of fell back on the practice of the Sabbath. And decided that what I was going to do is create a space for myself and try to give myself space where I just wouldn't work. And so that was about 12, 13 years ago. And it started out real slow. I started out just doing it. All I could last was turning my phone off at night and trying to get till noon the next day. But now I do it all one day a week, and it really transformed my life, not only personally, but professionally. And so I wrote a book about it.
Let me ask you something, Aaron. Was it a culmination of a bunch of things that happened that led you to this place, or was there something significant that just said, I have to take a hard break?
Well, I realized there was a problem when I found myself crying in the shower, feeling overwhelmed, feeling completely stressed out. And I realized that something was wrong. And this was after a kind of a series. I had 4 or 5 years of tremendous career success. And I talk about this in my book. And I even knew that I had a sense that something was wrong, that something was off before. Because I had a year where I made more money than I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm making this kind of money. But I just felt empty. And I felt like something was missing. And then a series of unfortunate events happened, including I fell in love with someone that I thought it was going to go somewhere. And then I had some business adversity. I had problems with a business partner. And then I got sick, and doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. And it turned out that it was like a misdiagnosed appendicitis. And, coming out of that surgery and just recovering, is I just went to a very kind of dark place, and I realized that my life was not working. And so that's when I kind of, almost in desperation, realized hey, I need to do something different. And what by now practicing the Sabbath, it has been such a positive transformation for me in all aspects of my life that I preach and talk about it all the time. And it wasn't until my last company, I started a company in 2008, buying foreclosed homes, fixing them up, renting them out. Started with 16 homes, built it to 2,500 single-family homes. We had some homes in Nashville, actually. And we sold the company 3 years ago to a publicly traded real estate investment trust. And I don't believe that success would have been possible if I hadn't been practicing the Sabbath. And that means turning the phone off. For me, I turned the phone off from Friday night to Saturday night, completely phone off, computer off, etc. I've witnessed a lot of work behavior and a lot of how people are interacting with technology over the years that I've been practicing this. And I realized that I needed to write a book, not only about my story, but the tremendous, overwhelming research there is on how bad it is, of how we're being connected 24/7, not giving ourselves a break, and also profile a bunch of very successful businesses and leaders that practice the Sabbath in some way, shape, or form.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah, I know Robert and I both are sort of nodding our heads as you're talking. For our audience, I know there are parents listening who are in the middle of life, and they're doing the best they can. They're working as hard as they can. And the only option left for them to catch up is to work that seventh day, to really take advantage of a day to catch up, quote unquote. I know I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
And it's sort of challenging for me to hear you remind me that the Sabbath could include my phone and my laptop. I wrote that down as you said that.
Right.
Did you feel that?
Oh, yeah. Because sometimes we say, okay, I'm not going to work.
Right.
But
I'm not mowing the yard,
connected.
but I'm answering email. Yeah. So the spirit of the Sabbath isn't being kept at all, but maybe just the letter of the law, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like a Pharisee.
Well, that's a great point, and this is the problem. I mean, the phone, I'm like holding the phone, looking at it. It's both the best and worst thing. If you're driven, if you're curious, if you want to be connected to friends, family, and business contacts. And so I am I'm blessed that I have 3 young kids. I have a 4-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son, and an 8-month-old son. And I find, business or working on your phone is just one click away. Yeah. So I'll be sitting on the floor with my daughter, and for some reason, let's say I'll just turn on a song, or I'll take a picture of her, and we're playing on the ground. And she's like, Papa, can you play with me? And I'll play with her, and I'll play with her. And then for some reason, I'll look at my phone, probably because I'm addicted to it. And then I'll turn away for just a second. And then immediately she says, Papa, will you play with me? But I am playing with her. But she knows that she does not have my full attention.
Yeah.
She immediately knows it. And the quality of my interactions with my daughter, with my kids, on the day that my phone is not on, or the times that my phone is put in a drawer, is night and day different between the quality that when my phone is there and I feel the pull and I know I have things to do and I have emails to respond to. And that's just like one small aspect. And I write about this in my book, is when I was running my business for Father's Day, after my daughter was born, my wife put together one of those photo album books and was describing, basically my daughter's name is Nora and Papa doing a variety of things. And one of them, and she's like, I don't know, 9 or 10 months old, is I'm on my cell phone and she's in like a baby carrier strapped to my chest. And it's like Nora and Papa like talking on the phone together. And my wife meant it as like a funny comment, but it really hit me in the gut. I'm like, I'm not spending quality time with my daughter. I'm not there with my daughter. I'm talking to my, at the time, my CFO, just working on a variety of financial issues, or someone else. And there's a part of me that's horrified.
Yeah. Well, it's inspiring to hear you talk, and convicting. I'm thinking to myself, like, it's so true how, like we've said, we give lip service to the idea that we're, taking time off. So I'm not going into the office or whatever, but I'm fully connected to anyone that wants to reach me at any point in time. So I think it's such a great principle of just putting your phone away. I have a question for you. Like the other people, obviously, being a successful businessman and an author, and just being connected to a bunch of people that don't do the same thing. How do you communicate? Look, you're not going to be able to reach me for 24 hours or whatever. And how's that gone over? And what would you say to someone out there that's saying, well, you don't understand. I have to be X, Y, or Z?
You know what? I love that you asked this question, because this is the reason I wrote the book. I wrote my book, The Hard Break, specifically for this reason. If a pastor came to you, if a loved one, a friend, a therapist, whoever came to the average person who's trying to succeed, trying to provide for their family, and said, hey, you should take a break. You're working really hard. You're burning the midnight oil. It's not good for you. You should practice the Sabbath. You should create time personally and spiritually, and it'll benefit you. The first reaction, and I know because this used to be my reaction, would be, well, you don't know what. I really appreciate that, and that's great, but you don't know what the modern world is like. You don't understand how we have to be connected. We have to do. Right. I need to be on every day, and this is the reason I wrote the book, because I wanted to write it from the business perspective, because I live this life. And not only did I live this life, but I spent 3 years researching. There are 200 footnotes in this book. I actually had to eliminate several to not make this a scientific journal. Studies from Harvard, Stanford, the Center for Disease Control, on how bad it is to be connected, to be working all the time. And not only that, but to profile super successful businesses like Chick-fil-A, which did $9 billion in sales last year. And as everyone knows, they're closed every Sunday. The average Chick-fil-A does 4 times the revenue of the average KFC, even though KFC is open every day. But I profile consultants, lawyers, movie producers. You basically real estate. You name across many industries and many different beliefs of people that are succeeding. And not only can they do this, but they believe they're succeeding because of this, because of the Sabbath. So So how you go about doing it, and this is part of this one thing where, part of the book where I'm telling stories and I'm convincing you, and I believe it's very convincing. But then the last part of the book is really showing like, hey, how can you implement this in your life?
Right.
How can you do this? And there's a whole variety of ways. Like one of the tips that I recommend is, and this is what worked for me, is to kind of do baby steps. So I didn't start out jumping in and taking a full day off. I jumped in and said, I'm going to try Saturday morning. I'm going to try to make it 4 hours with my phone off, which seemed like a gargantuan task. Like, how could you do that? And then, there's also a preparation part, which is letting people know, like, look, I'm off. And if, it's also remarkable is it's so funny. I'll tell people, it's not that I don't do anything on the Sabbath. This is the other thing that I talk about in my book. It's not you're just laying in bed doing nothing. Right. But I'll say, hey, I'll go, how about we meet for lunch at 1 p.m.? And then they said, that's great. Well, let's meet here. Let's go, if families are getting together, let's have a picnic at the park or wherever. And I'll say, great. I just want to let you know my phone's going to be off. And sometimes, people who don't know me or the first time, they're like, well, wait, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I'll see you there at 1. And, we forget, but before cell phones, like you used to just tell people, I'll be here at this time. And you'd show up and you wouldn't like check or flake out on someone and say, oh, I'm running 5 or 10 minutes late. And you know what happens? People show up because they know you're going to be there.
That's awesome.
And so there's all these different tips and tools in the book. Just another small example is some people, to your point, they need to, work every day, or they need to, or they just feel the need that they have to be connected. And so one example of a kind of a hard break for some people, again, baby step to kind of leg into, I wouldn't say this is ideal, but they leave work at 5 p.m. There's a lot of peer pressure around work. You don't want to be the first person to leave. You want to feel like you're committed to your company or whatever, but they let everybody know, I'm leaving at 5. I'm going to go pick up my kids. I'm going to help them with their homework. We're going to cook dinner. We're going to be together as a family. And then around 8 or 8:30 when they're in their bed or it's quiet time, if you have older kids or whatever, I'm going to log back in and I'm going to go right back at it until I go to sleep. And so that's like another kind of like way that you could integrate this concept of the hard break. I think it's the first step. I mean, I personally, and I describe in the book how important 24 hours is and how taking a full day is important. But there are a whole variety of tips, tricks, and tools of kind of trying to integrate this concept into your life.
I love that. It's kind of like our Creator actually knew what he was doing when he created us and said, you must have a Sabbath. I mean, he knew that it's important for our well-being. It's not just to worship him, but it's also for our well-being. I know that just the idea of pausing and resetting for me has been, I've never done what you're talking about, but I'm inspired to try to take a baby step towards that direction. I did a small version of that when I was a single parent, and it's overwhelming juggling all the things you have to juggle. But every night before dinner, I would kind of put myself in alone time, and I would just be still for 15 minutes, and kind of a form of meditation. But it really prepared me to get to the next thing that I did, which was have dinner with my daughters and connect with them. And so it's the same kind of principle of like pushing pause, being deliberate about it, not filling it up with, I didn't read a devotional, I just laid there and I didn't take a nap, but I just kind of made myself available to God and just said, please restore me, please meet me here. And it's incredible how that helped. And that's just a small idea of what you're talking about. I can imagine the payoff to this is significant.
Well, the payoff is significant. So when one of the most fascinating things, going back to the whole concept of the Sabbath that was created thousands of years ago, what's so fantastic is in my research, finding that the latest in neuroscience research validates a tradition thousands of years old. So let me explain. It turns out that when you're resting, when you're not running around like a crazy person and working all the time, you think your brain isn't doing anything. But it turns out that there's a part of your brain called the default mode network that goes into overdrive. What does the default mode network do? What it does is it pieces together the information the brain has received and the experiences, and it tries to form patterns and tries to gain understanding. So what is modern work life all about? It's all about being more creative, innovative, problem solving, making the right decisions. And so when you don't rest, when you don't take time off, you're actually hurting your chances to succeed in kind of the information economy or where the economy is going. And so it's awesome. It's so neat that you have this wonderful gift that has been given to us of the Sabbath. And the latest in neuroscience is completely backing it up.
Yeah, I'm listening to you. You don't know me, but I'm crazy enough to go on these major road trips with my family. And I went on a 7,000-mile road trip across about 9 different states a few years ago when they were still in high school. Wrote a book about it with Tyndale. And I found that was sort of my first hard break. I like your term hard break because it really emphasizes that it's a boundary between you and the rest of the culture. But as a pastor and as a guy who works, so I'm bivocational. I have a day job and then I do ministry in the evening. I've noticed that in the church or around spiritual organizations where there's philanthropy, it's really easy to justify working 7 days a week because you're serving people. And so that's, it's still a valuable tool that we need to be careful to respect as a commandment of God, this idea that we need rest.
I would say that goes along with parenting.
Yeah.
Like you can parent, and it's true, it's a 24-hour job, but if you're not being deliberate about taking time to pause, the same thing. You are doing yourself a disservice.
It's our therapist page, Cling and Peel. It's self-care. Yeah, this idea.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it's about thinking about the long term, not so focused on the short term. This is one of the key concepts of my book is that you really want long-term sustainable success, whether it's business, your personal life, your love life, your spiritual life, etc. And what the Sabbath allows us is it's a regular way to reset and be rejuvenated. And it's amazing. I get a vacation every week.
Well, one of the challenges, right, for type A's and really anyone, but especially a type A personality who's driven to succeed, performance goal-oriented person, is that we really have trouble trusting God with our success, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the real stretch of faith here is if I let go of something for that long, it'll just fall apart, right?
That's exactly right. And this is an incredibly valuable lesson that I share in my book. It is incredibly humbling when you turn off and you turn back on and you realize the world kept spinning without you. And I share this kind of funny story from a lawyer that I heard where there was a senior partner at a law firm that worked every day. And someone asked him, why do you work every day? Why don't you take any time off or vacation? And he said to kind of the junior partner, well, there's 2 things that would happen if I took a day off, and they're both bad. The first thing is that the firm would go into a tailspin and it would destroy the firm. And the second thing is that nothing would happen. And it's like kind of a funny story, but it's incredibly telling that he's equally afraid that him working all the time, that his job is not as important as he
It's
thinks.
not dependent on him. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And just understanding that makes you more humble.
Absolutely.
It makes you more grateful for life and makes you more understanding. And the other thing I wrote this book is that when you create or carve out a space where you're giving yourself your chance to reflect and just do something that's different than what you normally do and disconnect, it's inevitable that you're going to ask yourself some hard questions, or questions are going to pop in your head. Am I living my life right? What really is my spiritual life like? And am I living the life that I want to live? Am I truly engaged in what is important? These can be very hard questions. It's very easy to ignore them if you're playing on your phone all the time, because you don't have to answer those questions.
Wow. I honestly think we could talk a long, long time about this, because the reality is that there's no one hearing our voice right now who isn't struggling with this. This is a universal issue in the modern culture, right? We are all plugged in. We're all driven. Our time is so efficiently scheduled that we can do more longer than any generation ahead of us or behind us. I mean, we are tapped on the bandwidth. We're as thin as you can get, right? So this old idea of a Sabbath, this idea of a hard break, is beautiful and timely and incredibly challenging. I know there are listeners out there, Aaron, who would love to get more information about you and your book. Where would they go to find that online?
Sure. They could go to my website, thehardbreak.com, or they find my book on Amazon. They can. I'm on Twitter 6 days a week at Aaron Value, just my name, Aaron, and then Value, and then they can find me on Facebook, Aaron M. Edelheit, the author of The Hard Break. Wow,
that's fantastic. I'm actually going to look your book up myself. One of the things that, as I was listening to you talk, and sort of a closing wrap up, is that not only is this important for the parent to be a better parent, or the businessman to be a better businessman, but this is important for us to model to our kids, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's so important, and I write about this in my book. Yeah. Not to end on a down note, but there's a mental health epidemic going on in our country. And I believe that it's related to the fact that kids do not have any tools, and they don't realize that it's okay to turn off. Yeah. It's one thing to, go through puberty. It's very tough. And then you're going through high school and college. The number one way middle school kids die now is suicide. Yeah. College clinics are being overwhelmed with mental health cases, growing double digits every year. This is a really kind of scary problem. And I think that one of the real benefits is that when your kids are constantly watching you. They'll mimic your talk. They'll repeat what you say. And they're watching how you're using your phone. They see how much time you spend looking at it.
Yeah, I remember there was a study that Barna did with the Orange Group about 4 years ago on technology in the family. And, they went through all these statistics about how much kids are consuming media. And then the punchline was, and the only people doing it more are the parents.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And there's just all these wonderful things that a Sabbath could bring, where you can have a really wonderful meal. I have this thing where I call it panic eating. I'm sure we've all experienced it. You have 3 young kids. You have all places to go. I'm shoveling food in as fast as humanly possible because I got to wipe this nose and I got to do this and I got to change this diaper and all this stuff. On the Sabbath, it's completely different. I mean, you're still running around trying to make sure, but I have all this stretched out time where there's not this pull to me to go run, do this, or, answer this phone, but I'm really just there. Mm-hmm. And there's all this wonderful research showing how positive and the end results of kids who live in families that have a regular meal together. Mm-hmm. The outcomes for them is just so, if you could encapsulate something into a pill, have dinner, a regular dinner, have regular meals with your kids, and the outcomes are amazing.
So true.
In terms of drug abuse, in terms of, how they succeed in life.
Depression.
It's remarkable.
Couldn't agree more. That's such Such a good reminder.
Like I said, I think we could go on and on with this, and unfortunately, we're about out of time. But our guest today is Aaron Edelheit, and he's written a book called The Hard Break. It is a very timely book for modern families. It is a wonderful reminder of the truth that is in the scriptures, that God has always designed us to take a break every week. And our culture's kind of driven that out of us. So thank you, Aaron, for being on with us. And God bless you for taking the time to write this book and spend it with our audience.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for helping me spread the message of just the real value of the Sabbath.
It's our pleasure.
Well, we're very excited to announce a partnership with the guys that we know from Boise, Idaho, Robert.
Yes, we are. New release today. They're fantastic. Very, very relevant for what's going on. If you want to discover new music in the Christian realm, that's kind of the only place to go.
Yeah, and not only do they have amazing music and amazing reviews and just a lot of information about Christian artists, but they are creating with us a brand new devotional product. Call it IRL Resources.
Do you know what that stands for, Brad?
I found out.
You did? What does it stand for?
It stands for In Real Life.
That's exactly right, Brad. Very good. In real life, because a lot of times we have these standard devotionals that we see, and we thought that it would be kind of cool to use their expertise in Christian music, couple that with actual scriptural and devotional thought that digs you deeper, not only into the song, but incorporates it into real life. And so it's a very vibrant and very awesome resource for families and for pastors.
Yeah, and so if you have a preteen or a teen in your home and you're looking for a new devotional to do weekly, we have a digital subscription online at irlresources.com. It's very inexpensive. The first study is free to check it out. There's nothing to lose. You should go there and see what's the latest thing in Christian devotional.
Absolutely. You won't regret it.
All right, well, that was, Aaron, he was sort of messing with me.
So convicting. In my mind, I was going down the list of, gosh, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing this wrong. This was an opportunity. And you know what stuck out to me almost more than anything is the idea that he was sitting there with his daughter playing and the phone rings, or if he gets some alert or something happens. And then he's like, immediately almost, his daughter's like, Daddy, can you play with me? He didn't actually miss a step necessarily, but it was perceived by his daughter that he had disconnected, that he had disengaged. And I'm like going, that happens to me all the time where I'm just like, just a sec, let me just do this. Let me just. I got to stop doing that. I just got to put it away. So do you, Brad.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. I mean, come on. It's invasive, right? Our culture, the technology, it's so accessible. I mean, the point where he made, like, where I tell my friends, like, I'll just meet you at the restaurant. Mm-hmm. And
I'll be there.
And there's no way for you to confirm. Like, you're just going to have to trust that I'm going to be. I mean,
where did we go wrong?
What happened, man? That used to be normal.
Like, if you didn't get confirmation, you actually go, is it still happening?
Yeah.
Like, no. Of course it's happening. We said it was going to happen.
Yeah.
We're messed up people, Brad.
We've drifted a little from our base. The Sabbath, it's a biblical commandment, but as I look at these commandments of God, they're really for our benefit.
That's right.
This wasn't, God didn't invent the idea of Sabbath to punish us from being successful, but somehow it's gotten twisted up in the last couple hundred years.
We need to remember that God himself rested. I mean, this is not just, you guys are weak. You can only tolerate 6 days. We don't have a weak God, but he understands the significance for our betterment of taking a Sabbath.
Yeah, and there's something about the American culture, too.
I was going to say that.
Italy, where we are just...
They got this down.
Yeah, you go to Europe or other countries, Latin countries, and you're going to see siestas, and you're going to see a different work ethic.
Yes.
And in America, we sort of take pride in the fact that we never stop, that we're stronger.
And it's going to be our downfall.
Yeah, it's eroding families, and it's really affecting mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, jinx. Yeah, I mean, it's anxiety, depression. You could just tell that he could have gone a long way on that conversation. And I bet his book has a tremendous amount of detail on that.
I agree.
Well, folks, if you find yourself, like Robert and I, convicted after hearing our guest today, it might be...
First of all, know you're not alone.
Yeah, know you're in good company. We're groveling next to you. Jesus, have mercy. But I do think there's a healthy repentance we can show, right? Which is, let's start. He talked about take 4 hours to turn your phone off.
Yeah. Put it in a drawer.
Yeah. And, from 5 at night till 9 p.m. when the kids are still up and you're having dinner, it's not accessible. Let's start with those kind of boundaries. And I definitely felt convicted. I'm going to do some things differently.
I'm too.
I would encourage our audience to do that. And if you want to know more, you want to share this idea with a friend, hint, like a spouse or something, you could go online and purchase The Hard Break by Aaron. It's on Amazon. Yeah, any last thoughts?
I don't. I just going to go take a nap.
Okay. Gonna go rest. Well, folks, it is a joy and a privilege to share this time with you each week on our podcast, Brilliantly Brave. We do rely on your support and encouragement, sharing this program with your friends, your family, your neighbors, people that are living as Christians in a post-Christian culture. That's our audience, and we'll be right here next week. We'll be talking with Pastor Sue Detweiler. Thanks, and God bless.
Be encouraged, parents. You are not alone. In Paul's letter to his son in the faith, Timothy, he writes, "But I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and I am convinced that he is able to guard until that day what has been entrusted to me." Brilliantly Brave Parenting wants to be an encouragement and support that parents can rely on. Would you consider liking us and sharing us with a friend? As a part of the Tween Gospel Alliance, we are a nonprofit organization dependent on the support of friends like you. Thanks for stopping by. We'll be right here next week.
What our kids believe is going to define them for a lifetime. According to George Barna, by the age of 13, what a kid believes is what he'll die believing. For parents and for pastors, that's a frightening experience, especially if you've got an 11 or 12-year-old. At the I Shine Ministries headquarters, this became a huge priority in the last year. We partnered with the Tween Gospel Alliance to bring you a brand new resource known as the Shock and Awe Study Guide. And I'm here with one of the co-founders of this entire program, Robert Beeson. Can you tell us, what is the Shock and Awe Study Guide?
It is awesome. More than that? Yeah.
Okay.
The Shock and Awe Study Guide is a super cool thing that either a parent can do with their kid, or a youth pastor can do with their students, or a children's pastor can do with their students. And here's the cool thing about it. It is apologetics for kids. So it's the really huge evidence and thoughts of apologetics wrapped in a way that is really tangible and simple for kids to understand, answering 4 primary questions. And they are, what if there's a God? What if the Bible is true? What if Jesus is who he said he was? And what if I'm part of that plan? And we believe if you can answer those 4 questions and you are drawn through evidence proving those 4 questions, that really it's gonna establish a pretty unshakable foundation of faith.
That sounds very helpful, especially if you're a parent or pastor and you're concerned about the condition of your child's faith, what they believe, what the voices of culture are telling them. If that's you and you're interested, go to ishinelive.com and check out in our web store the Shock and Awe Study Guide. It has a digital cloud video base, so it's 4 studies in a small paperback volume for $9, and it has 4 videos that go with 4 studies. It can be done in a weekend, it can be done over a month, or it can be done bi-monthly, however you need it. It is a fantastic resource that I have used as a pastor in my own home church, and I have been impressed. So check it out.
Check it out.
iShine is a faith-based ministry and media company that looks and feels a lot like a Christian version of Disney. iShine is more than entertainment. We're the producer of the largest Christian tween TV series in the world, a nationally syndicated radio show, a Nashville-based record label, host to multiple live tours and summer festivals, an interactive website and social media, and a provider of printed and digital devotionals, preteen Bibles, and church curriculums. But more than anything, we're a trusted Christian resource for parents and pastors. You can turn to us for all things tween. Check us out at ishinelive.com.